with strength like a mountain. We rise above the doubt. Together we are fearless in a world that tries to shout. It's gonna be us leading the way through the night.
Hey there, I'm Reverend Amber Laffey. I'm so glad you're here. This is a podcast for clergy women by a clergy woman. I'm a mom, a wife, a trained spiritual director, a mentor to future church leaders, and an encourager of women in ministry everywhere. My hope and prayer is that this podcast brings you encouragement and helps equip you to lead with confidence in whatever context you serve in. You are a beloved child of God. You are enough, and you are called to serve God's people and lead the church for such a time as this. So welcome today, friends. I'm so glad to have beautiful Bethany, beloved Bethany. I'm so glad you're here.
Yay, I'm so glad I'm here for like a million reasons, but I'll just say it
Yes.
feels like such a joy. Yeah.
I'm so excited. So I'll give a little background how we know each other, and then you can tell more about yourself. So Bethany was pursuing her Doctor of Ministry the same time as me, and she's going to tell you what her project was. But I heard you give your presentation, and I'm like, we need to connect. I emailed you, and I'm like, I know you don't know me, but you're amazing.
It made my whole day. Yes.
So good and so refreshing to hear your project. And then I needed a mentor for my team. And I was like, Bethany, is it? God laid you on my heart. And you said yes, even though you didn't know me. And it's been such a joy to get to know you a little bit more and have you support me in this really important work.
Yeah.
So tell us about yourself, and then we can get into all the awesomeness of your Dr. Bethany work.
Goodness. Okay. Well, I mean, first of all, I just have to like say I remember that time that we kind of unofficially met in the seminar. It was like a virtual
Yeah.
seminar where we have to present portions of our research and project and all of that. And
Wow.
so nervous going into that because of as we'll get into, my
Mhm.
research in the area that I was exploring is definitely, maybe, I don't know, maybe a little bit not everybody's cup of tea. And, and so I was like looking for faces that I was just like, okay, who kind of is this resonating with, and who is this landing for? And you were definitely one of those. You emailed, and then it was just been such a gift to join you and your project, and now you, Dr. Amber, officially
Oh, thank you.
on that journey with you, and
Yeah.
so you're doing. So it just feels like such a real. I was like telling you even before we started recording that this group that you are speaking on behalf, speaking, I think, encouraging, um, in so many ways. I'm like, I just it's so needed and so beautiful. And what a space in the world that is absolutely necessary, is these women's voices and roles. I love how you always start out like, you are beloved, you are enough, all of that. If there's one thing I could say, it's like, that's what I am so passionate about, is that people in general, but I think a lot of times sometimes my work falls around with women who have been silenced their life, that they would feel enough and that they matter. So anyway, just a big honor to be here. Um, yeah, I mean, I could tell you a little bit about myself. I don't know how much you want to know. I'll just give you like real quick flyby.
Okay. Whatever.
Would that work? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I live in Colorado and with my husband, and am a mom to 3 awesome kids. And Got two teenagers and a 9-year-old, and so two daughters and a boy. And my husband is in full-time nonprofit work, and I have done some work in that space with the nonprofit work, but also my background, my kind of original training was as a mental health therapist. So I went and got my master's degree in mental health counseling. And so for quite a few years, I had my own private practice. And in the process of having that private practice, I tended to have a lot of people who were either within the Christian tradition, were within ministry spaces, a lot of people within ministry spaces, either already squarely within it or were, maybe exiting ministry spaces for reasons that might bring you to counseling. And
Yes.
I'm sure people understand all the challenges in this space. And my training is, it's mental health counseling. So it's not like biblical counseling. It's very much squarely rooted in, that mental health space and all the diagnosing and all of that. And but I was really having tons of crossover with people who were within church or Christian spaces. And I was just seeing over and over again how often people would say the phrase, like, I know God is fill in the blank with something very like quote unquote positive. Like, I know God is loving, or I know I should feel safe with God or whatever. And then there would, in so many words, always be a but. And there would be this deep like chasm between the maybe like head concept of what God should be to them and then what their reality is. And so
Yeah.
that and a lot of it even led me in. This is a big part of my like maybe longer story, is just seeing all of the pain and heartache within these spaces, ministry spaces that often I think is rooted in a lot of our stories, our own personal stories, and
Yes.
it's so important. And then even how within systems, the systems of maybe church systems, how that can often compound the hurt. And so I did a lot of this work, and then ended up being like, I want to just get my doctorate and really explore this concept of what I'm seeing in like the day-to-day world of the nitty-gritty work of working with people one-on-one, but understand this maybe from like a bigger perspective. And that bigger perspective being, how is our image of God formed, and why is it formed? And how is it, the big question, is it nature? Is it nurture? And how do our childhood experiences influence that? And, in the technical terms, what I might use is like attachment theory. Like, how does that play into that? But then I had this other dimension of, and why, I was just curious. It was a big curious point for me. Like, why is God so predominantly always represented in, not all settings, but in many settings as male, and pretty much only male? And how does that maybe shape our image of the divine? And then really at the core, like our view of self and view of our place in the world, specifically for women. So that sort of led me down this very, very curious path that opened up a lot of more questions than probably answers. And as these things,
Yeah.
but it was deeply, deeply important, I think, for my own journey of healing and my own story and all of that. So it all sort of intertwines, I think, my story of um, even my place in growing up in settings where I didn't really ever feel like I had a path towards feeling heard as a woman.
Okay.
I grew up in a maybe I'll stop talking after I say this. This is maybe one last little piece of my own story that plays into it is I didn't grow up like you. I in a denomination that is really validating of women's roles. I grew up in kind of a myriad of denominational influences, kind of from different perspectives, but all of them sort of had in common that they were like, no, really, women shouldn't be pastors or women shouldn't. I mean, maybe they can share their testimony, or maybe they can definitely work with children. That was a given. But yeah, there was a
Yeah.
pretty strong theological underpinning of like women shouldn't be leading men in this way. And
Mm.
it shifted over time. But it really shaped and formed me as someone who naturally kind of had leadership gifting and, a tendency to care about these things, and always felt like, why can't I actually influence and have a voice in this? So a lot of that even fed into like, oh, are there even bigger things of our shaping of our view of the divine that feed into why there's a lot of limiting that happens for women generally
Mm.
in a lot of these spaces. So
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And also, everyone who listens will completely affirm and be excited about what you're saying. I know you've had to hold back in the past,
I
but
have.
you do not have to.
I love it. I love it.
And because another thing that's worth explaining is that our seminary has several different denominations and backgrounds, um,
Yeah.
and several complementarians.
Yeah.
Did I say that right? But yeah, um, so many. I've had unfortunate experiences. In the doctoral program, it seems a lot less and a lot more welcoming, but you just never know who's going to be on your call when you're talking about women
Yeah.
and women in ministry. And then Bethany is so bold as to call God woman.
Yeah. Open up that can of worms.
Yeah. And so I was sitting there holding my breath for you, like, "Ugh, shut the mouths of the lions, Lord. Shut the mouths of the lions." Yeah,
Yeah, and I thankfully I think people were on their best behavior and there was no
for sure.
major, but I did have people direct messaging me during the seminar because it was all virtual and they were just like trying to give me, these
Oh no.
tensions, of course, men trying to give me like, you really should, really, I think you'd put people at ease if you just, I don't know, a whole lot of it, like, please just, it definitely ruffles feathers, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Oh no, a man is uncomfortable. So
I know,
probably
no,
have some,
I know.
but it's yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry that
No,
you were.
honestly, it felt, I mean, it didn't have at that, all of these things actually, if anything, it's like, oh, cool. Like this is touching on my intention is never just to be um contrary and just for the sake of that, I think that
Exactly. Yeah.
anything. And but to have dialogue around these things, and when we are only ever seeing from our limited our perspective, then
Mhm.
grow. And so I'm always happy for a pushback, but then also happy to push back as well. So yeah.
Yes. And one of the things I loved about your project that I'd love you to talk about more was that narrative of God is always presented as a man, but you worked with women who have never been able to connect with God because of that representation. And so, do you want to say more about that? Of how?
Yeah. So my project, or kind of my research base, was with this qualitative study that I did with this group of women, and
Mhm.
I would say all at various um, places in where they're at with either their denominational background or theological way of thinking. All of them probably definitely to some degree at a place of being open to this idea. So it wasn't like coming in and just like, I think it was a group of women who were are very open and curious. I'll just say it that way, and really lovely. And um it was a group that meets once a month to just have honest conversations about real things. Every woman in the group is a mother, so that comes up a lot. But to really explore kind of the honest things that we actually go through in life. And
Mm.
I sort of based the group on the wonderful Quaker writer Parker Palmer.
Yeah.
He's has a wonderful way of talking about listening groups, I think is what he calls them, where we just give space to not fix, to not come
Yep.
save, not to give our nice platitudes, but to just really be um, a place to witness one another stories and journeys, and with non-judgment and compassion. And
Mhm.
I think for a lot of people, that's so, we don't have a lot of spaces like that in the world. And so this is such a gift to have a group of women that are really want to do this. So anyway, we went on a journey together where I was like, hey, let's explore these themes of attachment and
Mhm.
how that's formed. And then also these themes of our image of God, and what does it mean to maybe expand that from just
Mm.
being very male centric to possibly just cracking the door open to what would it mean to open this up to this broader, more expansive view. And
Mhm.
I would say, like, the women in the group have all had, like, you know, many experiences that were very meaningful to them, related to their faith, related to to God or their view of God. But
Mhm.
as we started diving into it, what really became evident was that this I will say, I don't know how to say it other than a kind of narrow view of God, or just
Mhm.
one-sided view
Yes.
of God, limited them from an experience that is much more embodied, you know,
Mm.
much
Okay.
more full. Because I think if I were to do further research, I would love to explore this with men too and see what this might open up for them. But I can only, maybe speak to what we explored together as,
Yeah.
but for, really opening up this awareness of how, for if all you've been told your whole life is to talk, you were created in the, you're being told you're created in the image of God, and God is as a man. That's right
Mhm.
there incredibly limiting for a woman. To be able, in right there, you have to do a very quick kind of like cognitive dissonance. And of course it's analogy or it's metaphor, all of those things. But
Mhm.
what, in kind of my background research that I did in the literature of understanding how our thoughts form and all of that, was that actually language, of course, matters so much. What we call things matter. And there's like all sorts of deep research on this, of when we open up possibility by giving language to it. If there's no word, and like I kind of know this intuitively, maybe from my like counseling training or mental health training, is when you don't have like a word for an emotion, it's
Mhm.
very hard to start to work with that emotion. So if all you know is you have like, if you have a very limited like vocabulary for emotions, then one of the first things like I'll start to do is start to like open up our vocabulary and say, like, what is it?
Mhm.
You might be using the word sad, but sad can encompass so many things. Like, is it disappointed, or is it deep grief, and or is that sad actually anger, or all of these things. And as we do that,
Mhm.
we open up like our ability to be embodied and explore our experience, which then we know leads us to a place of integration and healing. And so
Yeah.
It's based with understanding as like a woman, or particularly in a lot of ways, we explored this as like mothers. We
Yeah.
have this deep embodied experience of what it means to mother and to love as a mother.
Mm.
To
Yes.
love deeply. And it's the only way to understand it is it's embodied. It's not a head thing. And like my sister just had her first child. And
Mm.
all of what I could tell her leading up to that point of like it's magical, it's in there's nothing like it. The like experience,
Yeah.
and it's you can kind of know that in your head going into it, but she's like, it's so true. There's nothing like the way my whole body like is totally, feels this love for this child.
Yes.
I
Mhm.
I don't even have words for it. We just kind of lose language for it. And by limiting this um, way that we talk about the divine to just father or just, you know, king, or these words that are very male centric, there's this whole dimension of knowing and experiencing what we already kind of know in our bodies as deep, deep love,
Mm.
can touch into from our experience. And that, for those that want it, I'm not saying everybody wants this, but for those that like want it, there's plenty of foundation to explore that with the view of the divine as well, and plenty within the tradition and within scripture that supports that too. So yeah,
Mhm.
so it was really exciting to explore this with these women and see this wonderful connection between like, oh, I know what that love not just like looks like, or
Mhm.
like what the thought of it is, but like I know that in my bones. And if
Yeah.
the way that I can connect to, to the divine, then that changes a lot. That changes a whole lot for us.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so that's just making me think that as a clergy person,
Yeah.
especially lately in the last couple of years, I feel like I've had a lot of success in ministry or fruitfulness, shall we say, of connecting with people because
Yeah.
that's exactly who I try to be. Like I'm trying to embody Christ as a mother hen
Right.
of loving and caring for my people just
Yes.
out of my mothering nurture nature.
Yes.
Um, and I can see that maybe it's also not for everyone,
Sure.
but right. And so, but I think, and people tell me that all the time, like, wow, you can really tell you're a mom, or um, because noise, simple things like noises don't bother me during worship because I'm so used to it. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, this is my everyday life, it doesn't bother me. But I think the way I can nurture, um and so I think it'd be great for you, because you're so smart. You know who you are. I'm just like, you just blew my mind. um but like what I want these women to hear as well, that we have a gift as women in the pulpit to, or whatever we're doing, leading in whatever way we're leading, to show people the love of God in a different way.
Well, I think that what it makes me so excited about this topic is that there, you know, if you kind of track the waves of feminism and all of that,
Yes.
there was a chunk of time where there, and understandably so, there was this attitude of to be able to succeed in a world that has been closed off so much to women, we have
Mhm.
to become like take on some of these maybe what has been stereotypically called more masculine, like tendencies. Like we need
Okay.
to like, you know, just be, kind of downplay aspects of our embodiment in the world
Mm,
because that's not what's going to be embraced, in the boardroom or in the pulpit,
yeah.
or in whatever, in all these places that have been
Yes.
filled by men. And I just want to be clear, like in all of this, it's not, my goal is never to like downplay or down, um, or even to say like men are to be, then of course, like we don't need them or any of those things. Like I actually, of course, don't think that. But what I like about this is that this is invitational to say, like, let's just bring the whole picture in. Like, let's just bring
Yes.
everything in.
Mm,
And I mean, no, a very well, I shouldn't say nobody, but I think most of us would say, like, oh, it's really, really awesome if you have both male and female influences in your child's life. Like, it's really,
yeah.
really like how wonderful that, like there are places that um you know, I I am so grateful for my husband's role in my kids' lives. And
Yeah.
I'm just never going to fill that. Like, I just can't. And some of those
Mhm.
are maybe a little bit more stereotypical masculine, but some are it's just him, and I
Yeah.
think it's the same within like a church setting. Like imagine
Mhm.
a child being raised by a single father and, um, we just said like, oh, you don't need like that, if like their mother died and you were just like it just doesn't matter. That mother didn't matter in their life.
Mhm.
That would not make any, I mean, we would be grieving for that child while
Yeah.
also celebrating the father that's loving and still there. And so all that to say, I think for like women in these roles is you carry a presence. It's not just that you're totally qualified and totally should be in those roles for all of the gifting and capacity and all of the things that qualify you, just period. Um,
Mhm.
Training and all of the work that goes into it, the sense of even calling and all of that, but also that there is an essence or a way of, I think that's what I found so much in this research. It's a way of being home in our bodies as whole women who, by just who we are, have a gift in our communities that is really so necessary. It's not just that it's like, oh great, now we've got maybe a little bit more equality. Like yay for that. I mean, I'm all in for equality. But we want that because it makes us more integrated as a community, as a whole community. And so I love even just what you're saying, like you don't check your whole experience at the door when you go up and you step into maybe a preaching or whatever. You are carrying in your whole essence as your experience, which encompasses motherhood and it all and your experience as a girl,
Yes.
understanding the dynamics of growing up, you know and the way that you metabolize life. And of course, as women, we're all different too. We're going to all experience the world differently, and there's not a one size fits all. But just like we want to elevate diversity with, other cultures and people, that
Mhm.
have different backgrounds, it's because we're better when we have it all there. We
Yeah. Mhm.
whole as a community. So yeah, it feels not just like important, but it feels necessary,
Mm.
not just like, oh, this is a nice thing to do, but I'm like, no, this is like necessary for our health as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. That's so good. Thank you.
Oh
Thank
man.
We are necessary and needed. And I think too, reflecting the image of God is right. What you're saying is the whole picture of who God is.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And what I think, in the research that I kind of did, and but both the like pre kind of literature review and all of that, but then with this wonderful, because the group I was working with, I wouldn't say are in, all of them have had exposure to ministry settings, at various levels, but not necessarily at the like leading a congregation or something like that, but definitely have lived within.
The system.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
what really stood out to me was how by opening up this permission to cultivate,
Mm,
or to pray in that way, or to even
mm,
cultivate it, there was like, it there was a coming home to their own
mm,
bodies that was deeply regulating, to their nervous systems and to their sense of being, that
mm,
was pretty beautiful to observe, and also really healing, um, to a lot of the ways that women's bodies have been really, really devalued, uh,
mm.
really, um, put into like a box, um,
Yes.
through a lot of, throughout, just honestly, throughout a lot of church history,
Mhm,
incredibly harmed.
mm,
One of the like saddest parts of my research was just reading all of these foundational theologians to the church tradition that said utterly horrific things about women and women's
mm,
bodies and women's minds and women's, roles. And it was not even like theological. It's just purely like, sometimes they would try to back it up theologically, like,
mhm.
those kinds of things. But a lot of times it's just so deeply misogynistic. And of course, we know that's still very present in a lot of spaces today.
Yeah.
And, of course, thankfully, I think many of the women listening to this podcast are within traditions that are much more healthy in this space and embracing. But those kinds of things are the water that women swim in, when we grow up. And that's in church settings, but then the system outside of that too, of course, that just very much um, valuing only like what a woman's body can bring, for, just the objectification of it and all of that. And then when a woman
Mhm,
becomes a mother, what all that transformation and ages, and, all of the value that systems put on women's bodies through, you've, appearance and your role and all of that. It's like, the as I was sitting with these women, I would kind of leave the time just like, ah, this is exhausting. Like,
mhm.
that women carry around with them so
Yes.
much. And it's understandable why that leads to a lot of anger on the part of women. A lot of, because
Yeah.
it's angering what it happens. And so that's why I think adding, or inviting this wholeness to it, it gives a place for a integration that's just so, like, our bodies need a place to rest. We need to
Mm,
feel like we don't have to fight the system or fight, but can just go,
yeah.
already good enough.
Mm,
I don't have to change myself, or I don't have to adapt to some idea that doesn't work. Like, I'm already enough, and I can already just live into that and through that, rather than like morphing and changing. And
mm,
you shared a story. I don't know if I can't remember if you shared on this podcast, but of, um, just how the comments on your body that women face when they're up there,
mhm.
like after the fact, like, well, maybe you need maybe you should think about doing your hair this way, or, maybe you should, these like things that very few men ever have to hear, if that,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
I'm like, it's so even within, systems that are supportive of women's roles, this plays out. And so
Yeah.
for women to have a place to just land in this is so important. So
Mhm. Oh, that's so good. So how can us, female clergy then play a role in that healing? Um, it is one thing that's on my mind. And then also, like, if we are serving in a congregation, is there a way for us to, or wherever we're at, to invite people or to notice women who have had this kind of treatment that we can invite them into relationship and not necessarily like think we're going to fix it, but for
right.
them to experience God in a different way.
What a like profound question, and one that I feel like in so many ways, I'm like, I would just love, like, if I'm just
Yeah.
imagining women sitting in a room, like the women listening to this, that I would just want to like be like, what do you think? And what do you think? Because I think everybody probably has a different way of doing this that will feel deeply intuitive to them.
Mm,
Maybe the
mhm,
first thing that I would want to just validate is our own healing work in this.
mhm.
Probably first and foremost the greatest gift we can give to,
Yeah.
anyone in our lives, whether that's our family or our, the people,
Mhm,
but certainly when you're in roles where you are caring, shepherding, really, really caring for people at so many levels, that the kind of transformation that happens within us, of course,
mhm.
of thing that then comes out. And when there's that, I think maybe the invitation to even allow some of this healing work to, which I'm sure is always happening and always ongoing, but just a big, like, your healing journey is so, so important. And one thing I do know about these spaces is that so often our healing work gets put on the back burner because there's so many
Mm,
other people's needs that
yes.
so so prominent and so seem so like necessary. Um
Mm,
and even for women in these spaces, like I heard, I mean, I've learned this from you, like how often you're expected to just literally do it all. You're expected to
yeah.
like ha- juggle it all and like have all, and that leaves, it can just feel like, okay, great. On top of that, now I have to like care about my healing journey, or I have to like do this. So it just feels so big. But if I could just, I don't know. I think my big, big heart is just like, oh, you're so worthy of that healing
Mm,
journey. The places where some of these messages
mm,
have harmed and maybe rooted in places of that you go like, I don't maybe believe this in my head, but I know in my body that when I get into certain contexts, I feel like
yes.
I have to mask. I feel like I have to shut down. I feel like I have to morph. And that, I think I would just say, like, that's not your fault. Like that's not
Mm,
that's yeah, like that's something that is that you're facing so much. And
mhm.
there's so much hope for that healing to come in those places. And so whatever that means, I think, and then as that healing work comes, I just think I would, in so many ways, as clergy women, just by being you, like being you,
Mhm.
not like
Yeah.
or like you just being you, you are already bringing such a shift to a room, to a, to a system, to a, wherever it is, you're bringing that naturally. And like, to then just to like live into that, which I know is all you wouldn't, I mean, I'm saying that was just so much like everybody, you already are. So
Yeah.
just a, if anything, I think validation of who you are and your roles, and to not maybe, as much as you feel the space for it, to feel the invitation to perhaps even open up this language even a little bit more.
Hmm.
Not everybody's ready for that, but open up the language of imaging of the divine in ways that are maybe a little bit outside of the liturgical norm, the liturgical norm of always this, but I think there's ways to do that that feel, appropriate in each setting that
Yeah. Yes.
place, certainly. But I think that requires our own shaping and,
Yes, for sure.
well, yeah.
Mm.
Again, though, I'm like so much humility around it because if I was in the room with anybody who would be listening to this, I'd be like, you just tell me because you would know best, I think. But but I don't think it can be your second question of like, how do we notice like women? I think that's the piece too that is so profound is as women, we have this, I think not always, but there's can be an invitation to safety, to
Yeah.
share. Um, that maybe wouldn't be shared with a male, you know, that just your presence to just being open, like, hey, I want to hear your story.
Hmm.
That starting with our story is so it's the foundation for so much because, where our story is how so much of our formation of obviously ourself, but even experience or imaging of God happens. And so gentle invitation to maybe expand the narrative a bit more can be such a gift. But I think all the women listen to this are deeply wise and have incredible insight into this in such natural ways that, if anything, I'm like, go for it.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you for that. That's a good reminder. And I so appreciate that. You said just by being yourself and bringing yourself into rooms, you bring healing. So I want everyone to hear that just by showing up, because listen, I mean, there's a lot of people who are way more experienced than me, but I do know from my experience when I went in and tried to put on that mask and whatever, it did not go well. And then when I entered a space as my true self of who God created me to be, that's when the fruitfulness happened. And several people who hadn't felt comfortable being in a church before were. And so that's such a great reminder and invitation to lay aside the mask. And it does break my heart because
Yeah.
I was at this training for or a gathering of women clergy, and it was so beautiful. You could just feel the spirit and the power. And then it shifted from a women's event, and then another event following for all church leaders. And the shift in the women,
Man, isn't
I,
that interesting? Yeah.
I'm just like, what happened to you from a
Hey,
couple hours ago?
can I just ask? I know,
Yeah.
like, I know I'm so curious, like, what did you notice? Because it sounds like you felt the shift
Hmm.
in your body, but obviously observationally too. But what was the shift? Like, was it, yeah.
Going from this, like, I'm part of a team, maybe. This is the best I can explain it, of like I'm part of this embodiment, maybe even like we're all coming there pretty fully, authentically. And then when the men come in, it's like the mask went on. Um,
Yeah.
let me tell you, like proving ourselves of like, well, I did this, and um,
Yeah.
this is how I do. This is how I do things, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, all of that kind of like comparison and feeling of insecurity that just shows up. You have to put
Mhm.
on. Yeah.
Absolutely, and guarding ourselves. Um, and so yeah, that's something I won't forget. I'm like, what just happened here? Like, because I guess, I mean, maybe my wounds are, I do go to counseling regularly. So again, I say it almost every time, please see your counselor. I'm just like, I'm gonna show up like myself, and you can not like it if you want.
I love it.
But yeah, it is so hard. And I think about those women who are so deeply wounded that it's so ingrained in who they are
Yeah.
that they just have to, or like they just do it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
switch into this masked.
Right. I think that's why, and I learned this from you and your project, or you gave a lot of languages to this in your
Mhm.
project around so often in these spaces, what happens is because, women start comparing and start doing like all this kind of judgment of themselves based on,
Mhm.
how well or how not well or whatever the women and I obviously think that's a human tendency. We all tend, I think that's a natural thing. But what's so huge about what you're saying is in an environment where there's freedom to really just be, you can just be your full self, and you can
Mhm.
there's actually so much um goodness and a sense of like the anxiety of all the proving and all of that is just all these
Mhm.
masks and parts of ourselves that protect tend to just relax and go like, okay, I can trust this deeper knowing within, which is that I'm already good. I'm already good enough. I don't have to.
Mhm.
And that it's amazing you just saw that like big shift that just happened. And how sad, because then what's missing from that is so much wholeness that is, then we're just coming into our relationships with each other or even to our work or whatever from this protective stance rather than
Yeah.
this like deeply open place of I'm already good enough. I'm
Mhm.
already in who I like my identity. And we already like we live in a world that does not celebrate. I mean, constantly we're being told compare, we're being told in every year. And so I think that's why this deeper individual work of like, if I have to look outside of myself for this, it's probably never really gonna come, or it'll come and then it'll get ripped away. It'll, and so that just coming home to a place of knowing that is much, much deeper within, I
Mhm.
think is the invitation. That's why I love this topic is for women like, oh no, we can actually be invited into this at a deeper level than we've often been given in the tradition, which is
Mhm.
disconnect from our embodied selves and like, no, you can
Mhm.
be in that embodied place. And it's so hard.
Yeah, it is.
So, like you're saying, when you are in it, it feels so, our bodies know it. Like they know
Yeah.
that's what I want. So,
Yeah. And this all has come hard fought for me, right? Like so much work
oh,
in like in inner work with counseling and all the things. So it isn't easy. It is so hard. And but we can do hard things.
you do hard things. I know. Yes.
Well, I have no idea how long we've been talking, and I'm sure we could probably talk the rest of the day. But do you have any closing like encouragement that you would want to share with the women listening?
Yeah, what a just honor, I think, to even have a little window or a little space. If anybody's listening to this, to me at this point is like keep. I know a lot of people are listening to this and getting so much out of it, but I'm saying more on like my side, coming in from a place where the role of women was not validated and was really, really, in many ways, devalued. I think what I would just want to say is the hard fought, like you were just saying, Amber, this is hard fought.
Yeah.
I just would want to like validate like how I'm imagining just if we were in a room together and seeing faces like, oh, each of you has a story that is filled with deep goodness, certainly, I'm certain, but also very likely you have stories and stories. And I know your project really validated story after story of real challenges and places where your voice has been devalued or your body has been not embraced in a very whole way, or where you've been told like you don't have a place, or or if you have a place, it needs to look like this in a way that is not actually true to who you are and who you're meant to be. And I think my like underlying heart or encouragement would just be, oh my goodness, you are already enough, which is how you started this whole podcast. And you start a podcast, you are already enough. Um and it's your journey of healing is so deeply important and valuable, and the time that it takes to do that is not ever a waste, and it's never a something that you should feel an ounce of um, guilt around, or but that you are so needed. It,
Mm.
your voice is so needed, and just your very presence in this world is deeply, deeply, deeply good. And
Mm.
I mostly just want to say thank you. I think that would be I don't think it's as much of an encouragement as a like, just thank you for doing a hard thing. Thank you for, a role that is really, really important, and loving people in ways that are beautiful and unique to you, and giving a picture of fullness that often our world doesn't see. So, yeah.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bethany. I'm gonna go cry now. Your words are just so beautiful. You sure reach my heart, and I know so many women who listen will just be so thankful to hear this, and all your knowledge and care and love is so evident for women. So thank you so much for all your work and listening to all those hard stories. That yes, I can't even imagine how that how hard that work was for you. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, ladies, I hope you were so touched. And thanks again, Bethany, for being here. And thank you, ladies, for being here. We will talk to you again next week. Have a great day.
with strength like a mountain. We rise above the doubt. Together we are fearless. gonna be